a encontrar. Soy así, ya es muy tarde para cambiar. Yo no espero nada, vivo sin rumbo. Solo quiero amar cada segundo. Soy aquel.
Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I would love to welcome Dr. Toni Reilly, is Australia's foremost past life reincarnation and afterlife specialist and best-selling author of Awake, The Purpose of Life and Why You Are Here. Dr. Toni trained at Arthur Findlay College in London under renowned psychiatrist Dr. Brian Weiss in New York. As founder of Toni Reilly Institute, she developed SoulLife Coaching, spiritual psychology over 2 decades of guiding thousands of clients and students to remember their past lives, visit loved ones in the afterlife, and travel in between lives for therapy and personal development. Her programs are backed up by extensive observation, research, and her own transcendent experiences. Dr. Toni's Doctorate of Divinity supports these visionary programs and teachings. Welcome to the A Little Less Fear podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Lino. I'm excited to be here and have a big conversation with you today.
Oh, me too. I love the alignment, and it's just really incredible how we can be so aligned even though you're 8,000 miles away from me. That's really incredible.
Indeed.
So, Dr. Toni, your incredible topics. You talk about the purpose of life, past lives, your incarnation, the afterlife, grief, Gen Z, spiritual psychology, your book, Awake, The Purpose of Life and Why You Are Here, with so many incredible deep topics that are in depth. I'm curious, what brought you to this journey to where you are at today?
What got me started is something that I used to have a big story about, but I've learned to condense it. So I'm going to give you the condensed version. Because so much has evolved since the beginning. But for me, I was in my middle 30s and I was going through a divorce, which was my choice, but it was a huge tumultuous time and I was riddled with guilt. And also that time being what it was, I had 3 little kids and it was a big deal to end that marriage. But what happened was, as soon as I made that decision, I was aware that I was intuitive. I'd been told so in the few readings. My friends and I used to go for a reading once a year. So, and every time I went, the reader would say, you could be doing this. And I didn't have time to even think about what intuition was because I worked full time and I had my little kids and life was just really busy. And the moment that my marriage ended, I became absolutely obsessed with finding out, what is this intuition that I have? How am I in my middle 30s and I don't know about this yet? So in the course of that, and of course we know now that serendipity is at play or synchronicity, everything's lined up. But what happened for me was I was told to find a meditation teacher. And I thought, monks meditate. That was my only knowledge of meditation at that time. Can you believe it? But I just didn't know that regular people meditated. And so I thought, okay, well, if that's what I have to do. But what happened was the internet was quite new then as well. And certainly for people in the sort of spiritual industry, they were not savvy with websites, but I found one. This website popped up with this lady, and she held development classes in her living area. And she, of course, I messaged her, emailed her, and she came back and said, this is the most wonderful path. And yes, you can come along to the classes. Even though they were closed little groups, she let me come along. So from the first time that I went and meditated, it was so wonderful. The way she did it was she would play music and she would guide us to a certain point, and then you're left there with the music, but you're left for whatever happens for you. And I used to sit with maybe 6 other, usually women.
Dr. Toni, what
And
type of music was it? Was it some type of like a frequency or sound bath music, or do
it
you remember?
it was actually shamanic music.
Oh, how beautiful.
Still to this day, I meditate to that same music. Of course, there's much more since, but yes, it was by Nile, this music. It was
Oh,
really good.
wow.
She would play it each week, but give a different little intro for us to go off and do some exploring. And I remember it was very prolific for me then because I could see. So this clairvoyant thing was strong. But also the messages that came in those meditations were just, they were so insightful. And for the first time, I realized that I had issues. And when I say issues, I mean self-worth issues and insecurities. I truly got to my mid-30s not knowing that I had anything like that.
Wow.
So it was a little bit of a shock to me. And almost every week that I would meditate in that group, there would be more stuff and more stuff. And I thought, Jesus, how much stuff have I got? Or really, what we know now is how deep is that stuff? But
Right.
so I think my journey into where I ended up started with this self-awareness because it came to me really quickly. It was almost what I was faced with in those meditations first up. And I found it completely liberating. It was really a whirlwind, but it's like, whoa, who knew? And this same lady who was my meditation teacher, her name was Mary Milady. She said to me a couple months in to meditating, she said, you need to read this book, Many Lives, Many Masters by
Wow.
Dr. Brian Weiss. And I'm like, I did everything then. I was obsessed. So I'm like, I never asked her what it was about, actually. I'm just like on a mission, get this book.
Oh, I
Took
love it.
3 weeks to find it. It would just, spiritual books just weren't readily available then.
Right.
But I found the book 3 weeks later and I read most of it as I came out of the shop and went sat in a coffee shop, and I nearly read at least half of it. And I finished it in a day. And
Wow.
I thought, this is what I'm here to do. It sounds so cliche, I know, but I had never really considered it before. And it was so clear to me, this is what you're here to do. And
What,
what happened? Oh,
Dr.
yes.
Toni, what did you learn in that book? What ignited you to know this is what I'm supposed to do? What's in that book?
Well, Many Lives, Many Masters is Dr. Brian Weiss's, he's an American psychiatrist. He had a patient who was very messy with various issues, things like claustrophobia and many other things that were affecting her life. And they did traditional therapy with her and nothing was working until I think he hypnotized her and she went back into past lives. And he was like, what's going on here? And of course, he documented everything, and hence the book. This was in the 70s, by the way. But all of her various symptoms were fixed, but she kept recalling session after session. She would recall another past life. And I think she also was channeling from memory messages for him. And so he was like, his eyes were opened as well
Oh, I bet.
to what exists out there.
I bet.
And so I guess for me, it was the past life aspect and the fact that it could help us. It could help people by
Yes.
remembering their past lives. So that was what my passion became. It's like using this for people to improve their life now,
Oh, I love it.
as it had done for mine. So after I read that book, I went to Mary and I said, I have to go over to the States and have a session with Dr. Brian Weiss because I never heard of this before.
Yeah.
She says to me, I know how to do that. So within a day or two, I'm on her couch and she regressed me and I recalled 3 lives. I asked for 3 symptoms because she said, when we do past lives, we want to help it fix something for now. So I had to reflect on what was wrong with me. And so I remember I asked for three things. And they were, why am I in my middle 30s and I don't have a clue that I'm intuitive? And it turns out I'm really intuitive.
Yeah.
I also went through school hiding my writing. I couldn't bear anyone looking over my shoulder. I didn't realize that was a phobia or anything weird until I knew. But then I thought that was pretty weird, actually, covering your writing.
Yeah.
And I also asked about, why can't I speak in front of people? Because really the only time I had spoken in public, other than being told to get up in front of kids at school, I would feel like dying. It was a terrible feeling. I couldn't bear it. But I remember at my wedding, I had to stand up and just say thank you to everyone for coming. And it was terrible. And actually, I lost my voice. So, metaphysically, what we know now or what I learned later, it all made sense. But anyway, those were the three things I asked about. Intuition, why did I cover my writing, and why can't I speak in front of people? And in my session, all of these things were addressed. And in the session, I know without any doubt that I didn't make it up. But what happened for me on the couch was I could see visions in my mind of me, and I had really strong feelings associated with them. I cried, and I know that tears are a physical affirmation of truth, or at least that's what they are for me.
Yes, for me too.
Yeah. So these tears were flowing, and although it was quite sad what I saw, it wasn't because I was sad. It was that I was acknowledging that it was true to me. I could feel it. So that was how that first introduction to past life regressions went. Of course, I can tell you what happened if you would like to know.
Yes.
But I can keep that brief as well. But the first story, in fact, I've just been to Scotland to explore it further. This is 20 years ago now, or almost 20 years ago.
I saw it
But
on
the,
Instagram. I was through your
yeah,
Instagram feed. That's incredible. And I was just like, holy moly, I would love to do that. Visiting
oh
your past
yes.
lives. I mean, wow. But do tell.
This one in particular is really, I really connect to it, even though I've seen so many over the years. But this first one, I was this woman, young girl, actually, a teenage woman, and about 17. And I lived in a cottage with my little brother. Our mother had died giving birth to him. He was 8 and I was 17. Anyway, what I saw was people would come to the little cottage and they would sit down with me, and that they would put their hands on top of mine, and I must have told them things that they needed to know, made them feel good. I also made poultice. I would go into the forest and pick certain roots and leaves and things, and also fungus, and I knew what to put
Wow.
together to heal predominantly open wounds so that they wouldn't get infected and that they would heal, and various other little things that my mother had taught me. So anyway, this is what I saw. And then it jumped to, I saw my dad as well. He worked away in the army. He had a red coat on and was on a horse. And I saw that I was to be hung. Apparently my little brother had talked about, very innocently, people would come to our house, and whoever had heard, there were witch hunts back in those days, whoever had heard about it must have spoken about it. And anyway, the next scene, I was on a platform with people around yelling at me to hang me. And it was devastating because I was just this sweet girl, teenage girl, but they were absolutely terrified of me. And so I'm up there on the platform, and in that first regression I didn't see him, but I know at the side of what I could see, someone let me go. And I ran off the platform out of town, and I remember thinking, there's a lot of people there, why would they just let me run away? But I think they were petrified that you were a witch. They didn't understand that you were just a bit of a healer. So anyway, I ran out of town and took cover in what was a hill with rocks on it. And the lady that used to be a little bit of a housekeeper at my cottage, she would send her kids to bring me food. But what happened was I died not very long later anyway. And I remember in the regression, I got all sweaty and hot and fevery, and I died. And it never really made complete sense to me. But I can talk about that a little bit later, because I regressed 15 years later to fill in the gaps.
Wow.
But the second thing I found out in that very first regression was why I covered my writing. And it was not a dissimilar story, but I saw myself as a man in my 40s or around 40, and he used to write in the most beautiful leather-bound book. And he would write his dreams, and he must have had visions, and he documented them all. And he also was of note in his town. I feel like he may have been the mayor. And what happened was there was a storm coming. And I called the people to a meeting, and I told them that this was going to happen. And they were like, how would you know that? So apparently we needed to prepare our little town, put sandbags and things. And this is what I was telling them. And they were like, how would you know? You're crazy. We're not listening to you. So they actually locked me up. This is the short version. They locked me up. I died in there. Took a long time. But they found my writing.
Oh.
And I knew, I think what happened then is subconsciously, it was like, don't let anyone see what you're writing. And then that also cleared my fear of public speaking. So when you're telling people things, if they're ostracizing you, there's this subconscious thing where you're not going to do it anymore. So there were my 3 things that I asked for were answered. And I guess you probably can see that those things have to be tested. Like I had to go back out in the world and see if they were fixed. And of course, I didn't quite know then, but it was the beginning of what would become what I ended up doing. And of course, I needed to be talking to people, and I needed to be writing. Right. First and foremost, to have a website, and secondly, to write articles that would be published and blogs and things like that. And of course, I would get up and speak about past lives, teach it and speak about it. So those things that were fixed in that first session, they set me up for absolutely speeding into this new realm of work and of consciousness and mission, I guess.
That's incredible and beautiful. I have so many questions in regards to past lives. So first off, thank you so much for sharing. That's really incredible. And okay. So one of the first things coming to my mind, the whole us not being in the whole time-space reality. We're all living simultaneously this life and all our past lives all in one, correct?
Well, I think so. Can I tell you, it does my head in that thing that it's all happening at once, because even when we work with the past lives, it's in a linear fashion. I know that time doesn't exist on the other side, right, but here it's linear. Sure. And when we're working with the past lives, they're literally, we think we're going, but we're remembering back as in what we know as history, as long as it's been written, or certainly it seems like it's before what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm. So if it seems that it's happening before, so I'm wondering if we go back to a past life, are we also healing the trauma back then as well?
Oh, Dr. Lino, I love this question. So this is the way it works. From the way I work with it is we're not healing what happened. We're never healing what happened. It's happened. And it happened for purpose. There was purpose in every life that we've lived. So what we do in the way that I work with this therapy or developed is we find out what happened and why. And the healing happens in understanding why it happened. And it's always quite a wise insight into why. So no matter what people see, no matter how traumatic it is or was, or how inappropriate potentially what happened was, they are receiving a message from their soul as to why it happened. And it's profound. It might not be much that they're told. It can be only a word sometimes, but it resonates with them and they're like, oh, I get it. I get it. And then what happens is what's going on for them now is potentially similar, the feelings that they're experiencing and the experience that they're having. And then it makes sense of it. And so what happens is they stop feeling victimized by life or by what's happened to them, and they start to see it from a higher perspective or from a wiser perspective.
When people, thank you for that. When people start seeing things from a higher perspective, a wider lens, and they're able to wake up from this past life regression and have a profound understanding on why they have a certain trauma or a certain tic or a certain disorder or something that's been agonizing them throughout their life. And while they're able to finally clear that in this life, do other traumas from other lives start springing up after that? Is it as if, okay, we've got rid of one now something else is popping up? And does that give them the opportunity to really start, I guess, uh, cleaning out the closet?
Well, sometimes, a lot of the time, particularly in the early days that I was doing this, whatever were people's main thing that they're doing in this life, it would be addressed predominantly in one session. Back in those days, I did really long sessions and they might go to 3 lifetimes. Sometimes they would go to 5, but most often they would go through 3. Sometimes they would see the same pattern in 3 separate lifetimes, or they might see 3 different things that can be addressed or were addressed. So it's different for each person. But I think one thing we discovered through all of this observation is, regardless of the past life traumas, we do come in this life literally with something to work through. And what the past lives do is help us understand what that is, so that it's some things that we're doing in this life they're not fixed. They're almost with us the entire life, but we learn who we are and what it means to us to have this insecurity about ourselves. And it helps us to learn, where do we match? Who do we match with? And where's comfortable for us to be? And we start to value ourselves and know where to place ourselves, which friends are good with us, which family members do we work well with, and which do we not. So learning about our idiosyncrasies and accepting who we are as a person in this life is really what the past lives help us do. And so, gosh, back to your question, do more things arise? A certain amount of things may arise and be fixed in the past life, but often, sometimes it turns into going for curiosity. Like, oh, I really have met this person, or why do I get along so well with my friend or my husband or my sister, whatever it is. They can go for curiosity to find when they've been before. And everything past lives is insightful and it's fun. And it helps understand the dynamics of our relationships now, which are critical to living our life now and valuing ourselves as a person.
How can we know? Thank you. Thank you for that. How can we know if something that we're going through is not as a result of a trauma that we've experienced in this life versus a pattern from another life that's continuing and continuing and continuing?
Oh, I love your questions. Well, what happens is, and this was part of the development of this metaphysical psychology, is what would happen in my own development, because mine came through anecdotal, literal observation. So with all of these people that I would see, initially they would always go to past lives. So I got to really explore how that worked and what it would fix, how it worked. But what happened after that was people would go into current life. So I got this influx of people coming. And if their main trauma or the core of it was in this life, they started to go there. So our process of recall, that's why we called it recall actually, rather than regression. It was like,
Oh,
you're
wow.
going to recall the core of where it started,
Oh, I
wherever
love
that
it.
might be. So for those whose issues were very connected with childhood, which actually we all have that, but they would go into a memory from their current childhood, and it helped us to explore what was going on there. And still, because in this process their higher self is, or their soul is giving them the information, and it's helping them understand why they get this wisdom even from what happened in current life.
That's incredible. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that explanation. Because when you go into this regression, when you go into the regression, it's you trust the process and the meditation or the hypnotic, however you do this through hypnosis, correct?
Yeah, I call it guided meditation, but it's
Guided
hypnosis.
meditation. And through the guided meditation, you trust the information that's coming through. So whether it takes you to this life or another life, you then are able to realize and have an awakening and a type of enlightenment and realize that this is actually where it's happening. We can start working from here forward.
Yes. It's almost, I guess the work isn't over entirely, because we'll be faced with that insecurity over and over and over again in our lifetimes.
Right.
And I think what happens is we react, either we stop reacting to it, or we pick up that we are reacting faster. So we learn to manage it. But one way or another, it's so insightful, and we become self-aware about what we've discovered and realize that it wasn't actually the other people that caused it. Well, even though it starts usually with the input of someone else, generally a parent or a carer, or lack of in those early days. But we stop feeling so terribly a victim of it, because it keeps us in a space of not feeling free. And it's almost like when we look at our past, whether it's past lives, whether it's earlier in this life, we discover true freedom from that, because it liberates us from thinking about it all the time, or getting stuck in there, or the behaviors that we continually perpetuate, not realizing why.
You also talk about reincarnation and soul contracts, correct?
Yes.
If hypothetically, theoretically, we reincarnate knowing, having these soul contracts that we're going to continue these patterns from other lives, why is it well, let's talk about that. So we have, and also and I love your topic on free will. So let's see if we can bring this together with
Okay.
reincarnation and free will. And so when we reincarnate, first off, do we all reincarnate?
We do. We do. From my observations, we all reincarnate.
Be it
We,
animals and humans? Yeah.
do you know what? I have not ever had someone be an animal, but I feel certain. So I can't answer this for sure, but I
Sure.
feel certain that animals reincarnate, because people have seen a little doggy that they've had in this life, and they'll say, oh, they'll see one in another lifetime, different dog, and they'll say, oh, that's my,
Yeah.
my dog Hobie, or whatever. So, and I think when you look into the eyes of an animal, you can tell that they are some kind of all-knowing.
Yes. Oh,
So,
yes, definitely. I feel that with my
yeah,
animals for sure. I love that. It's
yeah,
beautiful.
just
So
so unconditional.
it really is unconditional. And so let's say that I have an issue with abandonment, just
Yes,
hypothetically,
yes.
and this stems from 5 lifetimes ago, 6 lifetimes ago. Am I then, and when I'm in between lives, like the before life or the afterlife, however you want to say it, let's say that I'm in the afterlife slash before life, and I'm then looking back that I have some quote unquote issues with abandonment, but I'm agreeing to continue to go through this issue of abandonment in this life, with the potentiality of maybe diving deep to be able to abolish that agonizing feeling, or to continue the pattern in this life?
The way that those contracts or the life mission works, from my observations, is every single lifetime that we live, we are coming to do one of 5 predominant insecurities. One, of course, is abandonment.
Mhm.
One is rejection. Another is betrayal. Another one is what we call equality or injustice.
Mhm.
And the other one is humiliation. Those
Mhm.
5 bruises, we call them emotional bruises, but other people
Right.
call them wounds. But these 5 wounds, every single one of us on this planet will fall into the category of doing one of those quite strongly, and maybe a little bit of the others, but mostly it's one. So if abandonment is the predominant bruising for someone, then what they will do is, it won't be the past life that started it, but it will be going back into the past life to
I
understand
see.
why are they doing it now?
Okay.
What's going on here? So it just helps them understand this insecurity that they're working through this lifetime. And I want to add that all of these insecurities that I just mentioned, or these bruises, they all create who we are in this lifetime. And aside from the trauma that they cause us, they also are the reason that we are the lovely person that we are, or the
Mhm.
strong person that we are. They're also why we have certain traits that we default to. So they're not all bad, but they're certainly the basis of who we're going to be this time, and our behaviors and how we react to people and how we behave in our relationships. All of these things are defined by that emotional bruise.
I love this. And so, in summary of what you just said right now, just so that I understand it, all of us come in with these insecurities, or also known as type of bruises or trauma. And these bruises, there's like 5 core wounds, if I could use the word core. And some of these are abandonment. One is abandonment, rejection, betrayal, equality or injustice, and humiliation.
Yes.
And so when we come in with these bruises, some of us have one that weighs more than the other. And
Yes,
these bruises are actually what shape us and give us the personality, or the personal development that we've acquired in this here lifetime. And
yeah,
also, what I'm feeling from this is that this may also be the fire that ignites us towards our life purpose and our life mission. Is this correct?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
So back to the soul contract, part of that contract is that every single one of us will be doing one of those bruises. We're born with
Okay.
it. We can, part of the anecdotal work that I've done within developing this metaphysical psychology is we've created all of the possibilities. They're actually not that complex. But as a person, if you don't understand it, you don't. And I also know within our contract, we're not meant to understand it until we've potentially been a bit tortured by it. So it's all playing out in the contracted time or the blueprinted time. So it's super exciting to know it. I feel like I know a lot of people are like, oh, rolling their eyes and feeling like it takes away their free will, that everything's planned. But actually, when you know that things are planned, it gives you a more philosophical outlook on life. It's
Yes.
peaceful. It doesn't stop us living. It doesn't stop us or make us take life for granted or what we do. It doesn't do that. It makes us just more philosophical about when things happen, so that we don't fall into a big hole.
Right, in
We
a big
can,
repetitive cycle, whole
yeah,
feeling victimized when
right.
we're all equally going through these bruises.
Yes,
to get to
And we
know ourselves.
start to develop empathy for other people who might usually drive us crazy
Yeah.
with their behaviors, but it's like, oh, well, they're going through their thing as well. And
Right.
it kind of, it changes where something that would have usually gotten you hot under the collar or devastated you, suddenly it stops doing that. It's very empowering.
Yes, it is. Very,
Yeah.
very empowering. And so on the topic of free will, from my understanding, with reading about you and going on your Instagram, and I mean, from what I understand is because our life is predestined and pre-planned, there really is no free will. The free will is all mostly all up in our mind where we think that we are making these specific choices, but whatever choice we make is even the choice we're supposed to make. And
That's right.
because everything's already pre-planned, there's a blueprint already in place. And
Yeah.
so because there's a blueprint already in place, we can't go wrong. We're constantly on the path. We're not creating a path, we are the path. And
Yeah.
if we are the path, then everything that comes our way, be it good, be it bad, we are to go with it in grace, follow the flow, and trust that the path is already lit for us. Therefore, there is no right or wrong, where there's just elevation of our expansion and the reason why we're here.
That is so beautifully put. Yes.
Thank
That
you.
is, that
And
is,
prior to feeling that, what I used to feel, I actually, to be honest with you, I used to be confused with this. I used to be confused thinking, well, how does free will interplay with all this? And if there's free will, how do I even relate that to karma? And what is karma in that case if there's free will too? It was just such a big mix up in my mind. And so in this understanding, what I'm also feeling is that karma, be it again good or bad, which is also really on the perceiver or the observer,
right.
it's all good if you want to look at it that way. So whether there's bad karma or good karma, it's just basically a reaction towards the things that you did to get a specific response. And you could use that response to upgrade your soul or your purpose,
Yeah.
or to, I mean, there's no such thing as downgrading in that case. You could continue on a plane, or you can expand yourself by learning more about the development of your existence at that point.
Yes. Yes. So beautifully articulated.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate this. And so this is really incredible. And honestly, this really helps me too. And I really hope, and I'm certain it's going to help our listeners as well, that the beautiful thing about free will is if it feels good, do it. And if you feel free doing it, most likely you're following the path that you're meant to. And even if it doesn't feel good, you're still following the path that you're meant to.
I think probably one of the things that people don't like to hear is that they often will say, I went off path. I must have been off path, which is also when things get messy. But it's like you're so on path when you're messy. It's
Mhm.
it's really truly part of the human experience. It's meant to happen. It's how we get to know ourselves. It's how we develop as a person. It's how we appreciate who we are in this lifetime, but it happens, the same thing happens in each lifetime.
Yes, when people say they've gone off path, they're actually so on the path that
So
they
on the
are,
path.
yeah, they're so
Yeah.
on the path. And then the wonderful thing about that is when they in their mind or imagination finally get on the path, they're able to see that being off the path was the path because of the outcome, the learning outcome, or the training that they finally realize that they received from that experience.
Yeah, hindsight is the best thing with life, I think. Once we get through a process that we're meant to go through, then we get our wise hindsight. It's like, I get it. I know why that happened, because it redirects us somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
So incredible, right? We're always being redirected no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why all rejections are redirections.
Absolutely. Every time.
And so on the topic of rejections being redirections, can we talk a little bit about the purpose of life?
Yes, we can. I've got a really simple response for this.
Oh, tell me.
It's so simple. The purpose of life is to experience emotion. Every single thing that happens to us, even every thought that we have, which can only happen while we're in a body. So every sensation, every thought, everything that we experience through our human senses or our physical senses invokes an emotion. And it can be, we feel peaceful. Oh, it made me feel so relaxed. I feel so happy. I feel really sad. I feel devastated. Whatever the emotion is, that is what this body and our lives facilitate for us. So it's really that simple.
It's as simple as our life purpose being able to experience all of our senses in this human body.
Yep. All of our senses and all of the emotions that come to us. And I know they talk a lot about in traditional psychology about people managing their emotions and regulating them, all of these things, but ultimately understanding our emotion or what emotes us is going to be our biggest cure of all. And sometimes you're just a really soft and highly emotional person, and it's okay. It's okay. You just surround yourself with people who are similar or who don't mind that you're really emotional.
Oh, yeah, definitely, right?
Yeah.
So understanding what emotes us, what gives us these emotions. And so
Yeah.
then in understanding that our purpose of life is to experience emotions in this body, feel the emotion through all our senses and feel it throughout our body. What is our life mission? And is there a life mission?
The life missions, yes, we all come with a life mission. In part of our, we call it a life map, but in the contract. So, and it comes back to numerology or astrology, actually. Both of those modalities can define this for us. But I think that people think that their purpose is an outcome or it's a certain thing that they achieve, but it's not. It's every moment of every single day that we're here. That is the purpose of our life. But usually, not usually, always actually, there's a mission to accomplish. And it will be around, it will come back to this bruise that we come in to
Okay,
live through. And as part of that bruise, it might be that we are quite judgy. I'm just pulling a couple of things.
sure.
We might be very judgy of others. Even though it doesn't seem like we're doing that, we would know we are in ourselves. We might be very judgy of others. So part of the purpose of that one's life will be that they become more at ease with just allowing people to do what they do and be
Mhm.
okay with it. Or it can be something like learning to communicate openly, being less hidden with our vulnerabilities. There's a certain mission that's the mission. And there's lots of things, but actually not that many. Usually of each, there's 12, as we have 12 star signs, but in Life Map, we have 12 life paths or life missions, we call them. And there's an objective and a purpose within those, but they're not necessarily an outcome. They all come down to the development of an individual understanding themselves more.
Okay, so thank you for this is really incredible. And so our life mission, so we all come in a life, we all have a life mission.
Yes.
And we can get a little bit more information if we do like a birth chart or a life chart with astrology or numerology.
Life Map,
And
yes.
so I mean, people think, I'm just reiterating what you said so that I make sure that I understand this. A lot of people feel that our life mission is a certain outcome or a certain destination, correct?
Yeah.
Um, but what is true of a life mission is that every single moment there is, or every single day that there is, every single experience gives us the opportunity to work on the certain core wound or the core bruise or the insecurity
Yeah.
And within working through these bruises, there are different life paths that we can take. And there are 12 life paths, just as that there are 12 signs in the zodiac, correct?
Or 12 life paths in numerology. Yes.
Oh,
I should have asked your date of birth before because I could give an example based on you.
sure. Can we do this now, or is this, or how do you feel? How would you feel with that?
I would love to. I don't have a pen, so I'm going to do this with memory. So
Oh, I love this.
the date
Excellent.
of birth.
My date of birth is January 19th, 1980.
Okay, I'm just going to add it up.
So,
Of course you're number 11. Of course you are. Do you know that?
so I'm number 11. So, and how do we add this? So, for example, my birthday is 11980. So I would add the first two, right? 1 and 1 is 2. 9 and 8 is 17 and 0. 7, 8, 9 plus 2, 9 is 11. Why is it 11 and not 2? Don't we add the
Okay,
last two?
because within life map or numerology, we have 3 numbers that we call master numbers, or we call them super wonders: 11, 22, and 33, and probably even 44, but I talk about that much less. But those numbers, well, I'm going to give you a brief, my ideology behind those being called super wonder numbers. It's because they're hard. They're hard because the mission of people of those numbers, of those life paths, they're here to help. So what happens is life is potentially, the struggles maybe even twice as hard as others, but you won't know that because it's just been your life anyway.
Sure.
But what happens and how you experience life is usually just difficult one way or another. And it always forms part of what you end up doing to help other people understand. You're the perfect example. Look at your life, which we haven't discussed on this, but
Yeah.
we certainly will on my podcast. Look what you've been through. It's extraordinary. No, I doubt many people could even fathom it.
Right.
And look what you're doing. You're here being a voice. So in the life map system, we call you the messenger. So life path 11 people,
Oh,
the messenger. So they are here to bring information to people, but it's really about themselves. So I think usually what will happen is through your experiences, you're compelled to
yes.
teach or to share what you know with others. And if you start, I don't know, did you ever know that you were a number 11?
You know, this whole time I thought I was 2 because I was adding the 9 plus 2, which was 11, and then I was adding 11.
No, you're
So,
11.
that's
If
why. So, before we continue with this incredible reading that I'm really grateful for, thank you. But before we continue this, just so that people can do their own birth chart reading, how do we add it? How do we add our birthday?
Yes. So you add every number in your birthday. Don't drop the 1 and the 9 when you're doing your 1980. Add every number together.
Add every
And
number
then,
together. So 1 plus 1 plus 9 plus 8
yep.
plus 0. 11980. So 1 plus 1 is 2 plus 9 is 11 plus 8 is 19. But isn't that 10? Now I'm bad at math.
Now you've got to add, you do first, so 19, 1 plus 9 plus January, which is 1, plus 1 plus 9 plus 8, because you were born in 1980. Add all of those digits together.
Okay, I get it now. I was totally doing it wrong. So first, since my birthday is January 19th, 1980, first we would add 19th, which is the day.
Yep.
Plus the month, January 1.
Yep.
Plus 1 plus 9 plus 8 plus
Yes.
0.
And
Okay.
it comes to 29. So there's different kinds of 11s as well. There's different kinds of each of the numbers, and it will all determine the types of experiences they have and the way that they operate in the world. But a 2911, by my observations, is someone who's all the 11s are super intuitive, like super so. In fact, we talk about the two ones as having double the connection to our soul self or our higher self. But being a 29-11, for me, that 2 and that 9 together is very Scorpio-ish. So it's really deep, and that you would think very intensely about everything,
I
and you
do.
reflect on everything. And because you do that, you come up with potentially your own visionary outlooks on life. And this is where there's an association with number 11 energy and Aquarius, which we're in the age of it now. So the number 11 people, one way or another, they're here to be messengers. And for some, it may be within their own family. It may be within their family dynamic that they make a big difference. Or in the case of you and many others, you make an impact on lots of people.
Thank you.
So it's really exciting. I'm not surprised. Throughout my whole creating SoulLife Psychology or SoulLife Coaching, this metaphysical psychology, 11 people have been prominent.
Wow.
Yes.
So
prominent.
11 people have been prominent in your life.
They have been in my personal life, and also within, they make up a huge portion of the people who are attracted to spiritual psychology or metaphysical psychology.
Interesting, right? Wow, that's incredible. I love how you laugh about it.
So it's almost like, of course you're number 11.
Oh, wow, this is really amazing. I never knew I was an 11. This whole time I thought I was a 2.
Oh my goodness. I should send you some stuff next week about being an 11, because it's really special. And I think you're already a long way along with such a beautiful heart, but I think it can be a real struggle. And for people to, number 11s, anyone, but number 11s, we're talking about at the minute, to go, oh, there's, it all makes sense. Because they really attract each other as well, because the path is really, it's unique, and nobody else really understands. They don't understand themselves for a long time. And then to have people around who are similar to them makes them feel like they're not as alone. So usually the path will include other people who are the same number. And it'll be interesting if you research people
I'm going to. When we're done with this, I'm going to start adding up my friends' birthdays and trying to and see if we're all 11s.
There'll be some pertinent 11s in there. There's other missions that support us. I'm a number 5, but there's other missions that come in and they go really well together. And you'll have those as well, but you start to see the patterns when you look at it.
That's really interesting. And so it's similar to astrology in that you can even find who you're compatible with lifelong, like say a romantic partner, by knowing their number and your number.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And also something within, let's say, family dynamics, or obviously just a love relationship, friendships, you'd add the birthdays up and you look at each mission and you can say why you're together, whether it lasts or not, by the way, why you came together or why you're supporters in this lifetime, why you are together. It's really interesting. And it's just exciting. It's exciting to know it. It helps us make sense of the dynamics of life, really.
Wow, this is really incredible. And this is, I mean, numerology has been around just as long as astrology has, correct?
Yes, it's phenomenal. What we did in Soul Life in our work was we took numerology and we condensed it down into, what is your life mission? What are you here to do? And we called it Life Map, but it's based on numerology, just so that people can understand. If they're not interested in numerology,
sure,
some people get really interested in it, and it's amazing. But if they just want to know their purpose, why are they here, and why are they with this partner, and why didn't it work out with that partner, those kinds of things, then they can get into Life Map with us.
I love this. This is amazing. It excites me. And so on the topic, continuing the topic of life mission, and so knowing that we have objectives and purpose within these objectives, and that it's individualized. And if it's individualized, I guess what I'm trying to understand here, see, I feel that I have multiple missions in this life, and they're pretty big visions. I mean, really big, and helping the mass audience and on a global scale. It's like, if it, where does that type of vision come from? And why do I have such a strong desire? Is that in my numerology? Is that in my birth chart? I feel that, I stop with the, usually the, is like, how do I get my words together? Because I'm so excited. I feel that I have these incredible life missions, and that I have to carry them through. I have to.
You do.
Yeah.
You, so, Dr. Lino, this is wonderful because it helps me explain that because our blueprint is set, our life is set, what happens is you remember what you're here to do, and it comes as compulsion. And so even from a little kid, many of us might know, or we're like, people will call it, oh, you had this dream. And if we pick, let's say, an athlete that did extraordinarily in life, and they'll say, I knew from when I was little that I wanted to play for the Cowboys or something.
Sure.
And then we, as humans, we try and make it logical and say, well, they moved towards that dream. But actually, that was always going to be the case for them. They were born with that mission that they were going to become this Cowboys athlete, star.
Sure.
And it's the same with us in the work that we do, where you're the messenger and you know, and that's why you've had your visions, or you've been intuitively guided towards this and towards that. And you can see the vision for what you're doing in the future as well. It's because it's your life path to do so.
I love
and
this.
You're remembering it.
And you're giving me this clarity. It's just actually pushing me more towards these missions that I know that I'm inherently, whatever
Trust,
inherently
trust,
means, but
trust,
it's a feeling,
trust.
trusting, and also trusting that I'll get there
Yes.
and in order to get there. So what kind of advice can we give people who have their visions, their quote unquote dreams, to make sure that we get there? And if there's no such thing as a final destination or an actual outcome, will we ever get there, or are we just
Yes.
continuously trying to get there?
Yes, because they're part of, when we're talking about doing something that we have a vision to do and there's a compulsion to follow it, that is definitely part of our mission. So it's intertwined within our purpose. So my advice to people is, when they have a feeling that they're to do something, or they have a compulsion to, you must follow it. And I would also say that if you don't feel like it sometimes, it's okay. You can have some downtime, because sometimes the compulsion switches off. Sometimes it switches off for years, and we can get really disappointed in ourselves, but please don't, because everything happens in the timing of our contract or of our blueprint. So it might be in that time that you're not driven towards this vision, that you are supposed to be working more on something else on the way. And it could be that you're having a kid, or you're developing a relationship in that time, or maybe you're just having some reflective time. So one way or another, you are always on track. So don't be nasty to yourself, and be okay. Trust that when you don't feel like it, it's not time. And trust when you do feel like it, that you will not stop until it's achieved. Trust yourself no matter what. There's no such thing as failure in our life missions. And if it feels like there's been a failure, it wasn't really, it was part of your development. So keep going is the only thing. That's my big advice, is keep going. Because I think our humanness wants us to keep going, or we shouldn't be sitting idle, but actually sometimes we're supposed to. So
Thank
be
you
at ease
so
with
much.
that.
Goodness, Dr. Toni Reilly. Trust yourself no matter what. One way or another, you are always on track. There is no failure. Everything is all a part of your development. I love this.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
love this,
and
and it's so true how sometimes you just need to chill out and let things happen.
yeah,
I tend to have a challenging time with relaxing and just letting
yeah,
things do. I feel like I'm always on the go, doing something. And and if I don't stop, I will either get a migraine headache or something. The universe or my
yes.
higher self will
You're
push me
forced to
down
stop.
and say,
Yeah,
"Hey, it's now you have no choice but to chill and just
that's it.
relax." And so, I mean, one way or another, it's not failure to chill or relax. Even if you get a headache from it, it's still your body telling you now it's time for you to just allow,
Oh, yeah, have some downtime.
have some
And
downtime.
Dr. Lino, one thing I did forget to say is the life mission of 11, the
Yes,
message.
thank you.
One of the big purposes within it
Yes.
is to overcome confidence or lack thereof. And can I tell you that confidence can feel like your biggest hurdle, but it's also your greatest strength because lacking confidence forces you to produce, you force yourself to do so well at anything you do. And it's because of this underlying confidence that's pushing you. And therefore, what happens is you may never think it is, but what you do is you produce extraordinary work or outcomes. So it's catch 22 or a double-edged sword that the lacking confidence may feel terrible to you, but it actually is also your greatest gift. So, but what does happen over time is you will trust yourself more and the confidence rises up and is much more there and less of a hindrance.
Thank you so much. Confidence is your greatest gift, and even the lack of confidence will still be your greatest gift because also I'm going to say my greatest gift because ultimately it's gaining that because of my numerologic
Yeah,
life path of number 11. Confidence tends to be one of the biggest hurdles.
it does. Oh, I can tell you a little more. I'm just going to
Yeah,
tell you,
yes,
okay,
please.
because
This is a
coming to
blessing to me.
so you're also on being on the 19 day. So that makes you leader energy. And leadership energy is unstoppable. It's also to do with confidence. But what happens is it's almost not like a bull at a gate. It's got this natural way of people being attracted to you. Actually, there's an energy that you would emit that people are attracted to this energy, and it's because what you do with leader energy is you lead in the way that we talk about these days is needed. So allowing people to be within their own strengths and leading by example and not being above them, not being hierarchical with your leadership. So really just the way you are is leader qualities, and people know it. They also would feel when they speak to you, they would feel heard, they would feel like they're equal. And because one of the powerful things about the leader energy is they can and will speak to anybody as if they're on the same level. They're just a person. So whether you're the president or a man on the street, you're going to get the same engagement from leader energy. And it's a beautiful thing. It's also it can be a burden as well, can I say, because there's also, it can feel like you're very responsible for others. So as part of that energy, it will be about coming to terms with a balance that's also healthy for you. But it does happen through our lives, but these are the sorts of things that are the challenge as much as the strength.
This is so accurate and right on point. I mean, being on the 19th day, just that as you were saying, I wrote all this down. It's leadership energy. People are attracted to this type of energy, mostly because and I'm certain that I practice this, especially when I was practicing Buddhism. A lot of it's equanimity, which was huge for me. And I
Yeah.
see everybody as equal. And I always have this vision where if I had my own Lino show, where it kind of like a mirroring of Oprah's show. It would be fascinating if I could have someone like Mel Gibson and your everyday grandmother neighbor who bakes cakes at the same time, interviewing them at the same time.
Yeah.
I love to be able to just correlate humanity with being similar and the same, regardless of what you've done in life. And I
Yes.
have this as a passion, seeing everybody as equal no matter who they are. And I've learned lessons from the bum in the street. And so, I mean, because of yeah, it's been incredible. It is the beauty of everything, and it's really the way that I see everybody. And one of my biggest goals, and it could be the 19th leadership energy, is to see everybody with unconditional love. That's been huge for me. Unconditional love, just love, and unconditional love for myself. And because
Yeah.
we already are love, we're love. We're made by
That's
love for
right.
love.
That's right. And I mean, we're here having this beautiful or wonderful human experience at the moment, but when we go home, we're returning to that. We're returning to pure, unconditional love. It's what it feels like.
And I feel pure unconditional love here with you, Dr. Toni Reilly. This has been really incredible. I would love to have you back on the show and next time talk about the afterlife, grief, Gen Z, and spiritual psychology. Just these other incredible, and also your book, Awake: The Purpose of Life and Why You Are Here. I hope this is the stuff that's in your book, correct?
Yes, it is. I tried to outline the purpose of life through expressing my life.
I
And
love this.
choosing your parents and the things that happen and choices you make, how they affect people, and how it just all fits into your life map.
Absolutely love this. Dr. Toni Reilly, bestselling author of Awake: The Purpose of Life and Why You Are Here. Where can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners find you?
Ooh, Dr. Lino, okay, I have a website. It's called Toni Reilly Institute.com. And you can find me on there. I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on all of them actually. But I'm going to try and put a bit more energy into Instagram to teach. It's the one I've put least energy into over the years. So you can find me on Instagram or on all of those platforms at Dr. Toni Reilly, Dr. Toni Reilly.
Dr. Toni Reilly, I'd like to end this with a poem that I wrote dedicated to your energy. And so here it goes. Dr. Toni Reilly. To be able to integrate my past lives into my current life, to be able to clear turmoil and remove myself. To be able to clear turmoil and renounce myself, a spiritual traveler. To be able to integrate soul purpose and human life with the mission at hand. To be able to set free and set others free. To see how we are all woven together and connected synchronistically and synergistically is how I mold this place and follow the space before me with love at the forefront. This is my current life. And that's for you.
That's really beautiful. Thank you.
Well, you're really beautiful. Thank you.
I love that. I love that. It's so beautiful. Oh, I wouldn't be able to articulate it like that, but that's how it is.
That is
Thank
how
you
it is,
so
and that's how I
much.
feel you. And I'm really blessed for this connection. Thank you for sharing all of your
Oh,
incredible wisdom here on A Little Less Fear podcast and with the world. It's really incredible that we can connect like this.
thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed it immensely, and that poem is going to stay with me.
Thank you so much, and it's staying with me too. And I look forward to having you back. Wishing you a wonderful, incredible day out there in Australia, and happy birthday to your mom.
Thank you, Dr. Lino.
Thank you.